Yeah.
So here they are. I'm super excited to share this with you. These are my working replicas of the Nightvision goggles seen in Jurassic Park. I've been building these for the past year or so, and they culminate about 4 years of research and scouring the internet, because this thing actually consists of the same parts found in the original screen use prop. The zoom lenses, the actual ratchet harness, even down to the switches, are screen matched to the original piece. And that means that this is the world's first working replica of the Nightvision goggles from Jurassic Park. The goggles are fully wearable but suffer from being a bit heavy in the front section.
Are they heavy?
To turn them on, you simply flick the switch on the right hand side, and then to zoom in and out, you use the rocker on the left hand side. You press up to zoom out and down to zoom back in, just like Timmy does in the movie. Now the actual lens caps with the crosshairs on them are part of the mechanism of the lens, so they automatically come up and down as you zoom in and out of that stop position. And this is all powered by a lithium-ion battery concealed inside the helmet. You can see through these goggles. That was an important part of my research. I found that they made clear versions and opaque versions for the film. You can actually see Joseph Mazzello's cheek through the aperture of the lenses. I decided to call my replicas the Goat Finder Mark I because Timmy's looking for a goat in the film when he uses the goggles. I've compiled my years of research into a nice tidy poster document that you can download for free. Link is down below, and this showcases all of the key components used in the original replicas, so you can actually start building your own. Ever since I first saw Jurassic Park, I remember there was one prop in particular that really stood out to me, and that was the Nightvision goggles used by Timmy in the back of the Ford Explorer. It wasn't that Nightvision was a particularly new piece of technology, it was just the fact that they'd made it into this jazzed up piece of gadgetry that actually worked and was fairly simple to use and had awesome zoom in, zoom out lenses. So I headed over to the replica prop forum to see if anyone had correctly identified the lenses or the head strap, and no one had really worked out exactly what the parts were. So for me, that was an unsolved mystery, and I wanted to work out what it was made from. I found a camera made by Konica in the early 90s, the AI Borg, colloquially known as the Darth Vader camera because it's sleek and black, and the lip of the lens very closely resembled what Timmy uses in Jurassic Park on the Nightvision goggles. Here's footage of the camera in question. It's a really nice piece of early 90s Japanese design, even down to the lens cover, which has this lighthouse glass effect which is present on the screen use piece. And from activating the camera, I saw that the motor behaviours of the lens were very similar to what we see in the film. There was a slight difference in that on the lip of the lens there was some Konica lettering, but I noticed from looking at an image of the screen use piece that actually they'd painted over this with some black paint. The main difference were these brass rings around the outside of the lens. So I decided to order one, dismantle it, and lo and behold, it precisely matched the Nightvision goggle lens. Filled with excitement, it dawned on me that I was going to be the first person to make a screen accurate replica of the Nightvision goggles. I just now had to figure out what the harness was made from, which to me seemed like a fairly simple process. Turns out the harness alone took 3 months to figure out. It's from a Huntsman 930p welding mask. Interesting bit of trivia about the welding harness, it's got this little warning label on the back, and it was visible to a lot of people going to the Jurassic Park display at Universal Studios during the 90s, and it doesn't actually say anything about the Nightvision goggles. It's actually a warning about if you turn the ratchet too tight it will break, telling me that essentially the harness is a piece of faulty welding tech made by Huntsman and was probably a discontinued line for this reason, and that's why this white nylon strap is so difficult to find now. With the lenses, the harness and the switches identified, I decided to move on to the body of the goggles, which were originally hand sculpted in clay before being cast in resin. For my build, I was going to actually sculpt them in 3D before sending them off to be rapid prototyped. It was around this time that Chronicle Collectibles released into the public domain images of 3D scans of the original Nightvision goggles from Jurassic Park. The timing for me couldn't have been any better, and I decided to match this thing from all angles to make sure that I got an authentic replica of the original Nightvision goggles. There was so much asymmetry in the original goggles. They were originally hand sculpted in clay and then cast in resin, so I wanted to make sure that I matched everything, including the fact that the switches were lopsided on either side and the fact that the actual helmet part was very skewed. So here is the 3D print from Shapeways. It's actually a really good quality print. There's not much stepping visible on this. There's a little bit round the back and also around the edges of these finer parts. But apart from that, I'm really pleased with this print. These are two test parts that I ordered, but I was using them to test the sanding process. So this is what you get from Shapeways. This is what they call their strong, white and flexible. Got this stepping, which is just inherent in the 3D printing process because it prints in layers. These all absorb moisture, and they make this material quite porous. So when you spray it with paint, sometimes you're left with almost like a rocky surface, like a porous, earthy surface. They coat it many times in filler primer, and filler primer fills up all those micro pores. And you do that about 5 times. You do about 4 or 5 passes of filler primer, sand it back each time, and then finally you can prime it with standard grey primer, which gets it ready for painting. Much to the delight of my wife, I did most of the spray painting in our kitchen. We have an extractor fan and I left the windows wide open so it was well ventilated, but still, unfortunately, some of the spray paint did end up on our pepper grinder. So here is the helmet part of the goggles, and it's got its final pass of grey primer on there. I've just finished sanding it back with 1000 grit sandpaper, which makes it nice and smooth. You can see it's already picking up some of the highlights of the sunlight there, which bodes well for the final paint job. Now what I'm going to do is keep this part grey, because in the actual prop this part seems to be primer grey, and then this section here is all green and has the camo texture that you'd recognise. And to make sure that I'm getting it right, obviously I've got reference from the film, so I've just blown up some stills. Here you can see the back end, which is nice, and then Chronicle last year released this image which shows me this side and also gives me a really clear idea exactly where to mask off. I mean, it's pretty much just in that line there. This is going to be 2 coats of green. I'm going to do a base coat of the light green, and then I'm going to spray the dark green with an airbrush to get these camo stripes in. And in order to do that, I'm going to first lay down the light green pass and then lightly sand it with the 1000 grit sandpaper, just so that the paint has a little bit of bite, so that when I airbrush it, it goes on easy. And when I'm masking off, I want this line to be fairly heavy duty because I'm going to be lightly sanding it. So I'm using this Tamiya masking tape refill. This is usually used for model making, but I've heard it's really accurate and pretty hard going, so that's good. And I got this for more general areas. One last detail, I managed to get hold of Michael Lantieri, who led the team that built the original goggles, and I printed off these little custom labels to go inside my Nightvision goggles. Luckily I got him to sign one of them, and this will be going inside the Nightvision goggles as a little Easter egg.